I'm gonna make an inference that you have definitely seen that intro before. Valve is one of the greatest game development companies in existence. They are the reason why games have shaped into the way they are now. They are the reason storytelling has evolved into stories that rival those of movies and TV shows and many other media. Because Valve takes risks. They think of new concepts and adapt them into games. They innovate while everyone else in the video game industry seems to just be trying to get a quick buck with every new release. But that was never the case for Valve. You can be as mad as you want at them for making Artifact, but at least it wasn't a cash grab. They genuinely believed in it and made it because they thought it was good enough to be released. And that's the case with every game they have released. But you will hear more about that later when we actually get into the games. So why don't we just have a quick rundown on the history of Valve and how they went from people who quit Microsoft to a multi-billion-dollar company. Okay, so in 1996, Valve was created by the legendary Gabe Newell and co-CEO Mike Harrington. They quickly got to work on a project that went by the name, quote-unquote, Half-Life, that ran off a game engine that you might have heard of, Gold Source, which was a variant of the Quake engine. When Half-Life was released in 1998, it was an absolute hit. People from everywhere seemed to be absolutely in love with this game, and for obvious reasons, which I will go into later when we are examining their mini games again. And with the success of Half-Life, got Valve to create 2 DLCs, a PlayStation port, and a port to a game engine that they created called the Source Engine. But sadly, after the release of the first DLC, Mike Harrington left Valve because of family matters, and also the fact they did not want to risk any other game projects after the release of Half-Life, and that would later on be seen as a mistake, but he was spending time with his family, so it's very much noticeable why he did it. But the impact of the Source game engine still remains today with titles such as CSGO, you've heard of it, I'm pretty sure you have, Apex Legends, which is a battle royale game that came out rivaling Fortnite and failed, but Fortnite's dead now, Half-Life Alyx, which is a new Half-Life game that came out this year, and Dota 2, which is a top-down RPG game, I'm pretty sure, and many more popular games. To this day, many of Valve's games are the most popular games on Steam, which is the biggest gaming marketplace for the PC, and yeah, they kind of own it. Yeah, they're making the big bucks. So that's a big incentive for them to just lay back and not create games anymore, since they're raking in billions of dollars every year from their ownership of Steam. And, well, their games sell on it. And they also have huge marketplaces in CSGO and Team Fortress 2 that are thriving economies to this day. While they rarely make games anymore, we could still look out some bangers that they put out when they were in their prime. So, let's start off with the incredibly influential Half-Life series. As stated earlier, Half-Life 1 was released back in 1998 using the Gold Source engine, which was a highly modified version of the Quake engine. The game was originally published by Sierra Entertainment and developed by Valve. The game quickly became an absolute hit, earning over 50 Game of the Year awards, and to this day is still regarded as the most influential game to the rise of the first-person shooter genre ever made. And that's a feature that not many have even gotten close to. The only exceptions I could think of are Doom, Medal of Honor, and Mass Effect. Yeah, not many are on the level of Half-Life, and there is no arguing that. And so, for a game that has so many awards, the gunplay and storytelling must be absolutely groundbreaking, right? And to that, I would say groundbreaking is a bit of an understatement. This game went its full runtime without any cutscenes or break from the first-person view of Gordon Freeman. A move that seemed to be dumb at the time, but if you paid more attention to how it worked, you would see how absolutely innovating this was. Instead of breaking gameplay with cutscenes or dialogue boxes explaining the story, you actually encounter these unforgettable events. You are directly the reason why the Residence Cascade happened. You pushed a sample into the anti-mass spectrometer and watched yourself teleport between dimensions. You encounter the monsters that came from that planet. You are there when it happens. Instead of telling the player and about how there's a planet called Zen with strange monsters, you go to Zen and you encounter the monsters yourself. This is the best example of show don't tell, and it does an absolutely fantastic way of going about it. Half-Life went on for about 3 more years with 2 DLCs named Opposing Force and Blue Shift that seem to play out the same story but through different people's eyes. They're nothing to write home about, but they are pretty awesome. But in 2004, after years of anticipation and build-up, we finally got Half-Life 2. And let's just say, if you were expecting the same game with minor differences, you would be dead wrong. Half-Life 2 changed almost everything from the first game while keeping what made it amazing. Instead of being in the confines of Black Mesa, a small science facility where it's very narrow and predictable at times, Half-Life 2 dumps you into the vibrant world of City 17 after the events of the Combine invasion that happened after the events of Opposing Force. And while we are shown nothing about who these people are and why we are almost slaves to them, we're given all the information we need in the first 3 hours of the game. They are an alien race that came to Earth because of an explosion that caught their attention from space. They invade Earth and use humanity as slaves after Dr. Breen negotiates with them for the safety of the human race. You are again in the eyes of Dr. Freeman, but this time you are almost like a legend. All the men and women living in City 17 act like you are the shining light of hope for them, and how they have been told amazing things about you. And it's to the point where people lie about you, saying that you crawled out of Black Mesa using a crowbar only. But that just shows the amount of respect and admiration that they have for you, even though you are directly responsible for what happened. They know you didn't mean to do it, but they also know that you can help stop the Combine and bring back freedom for the human race. It's a genuinely beautiful story that if you want to experience, I would 100% recommend you buy both games on Steam. And if you want a more modernized and remade version of Half-Life, play Black Mesa. It was developed and published by Crowbar Collective. Go right ahead, it's a fantastic remake that deserves just as high reviews as the original game. But with the amount of time it's been since Half-Life 2 came out, we finally got another entry into the series in 2020 called Half-Life Alyx, which is a prequel to Half-Life 2 in the eyes of Alyx Vance. It's a VR experience that is fantastic and has a killer ending as well, but I choose not to spoil it for you because it holds a lot more purpose than anything I've told you in this video. Portal was released in 2007, 3 years after the release of Half-Life 2, and also while your boy was being born, which is pretty epic. But Portal is a puzzle game based around enclosed environments and a specific way of how you will escape it using a portal gun to get specific places, as well as using momentum and physics to get yourself to places where you can't just teleport to with the portal gun. The story of this game begins with you waking up in a small chamber, only containing a radio, a toilet, and a bed, in which you woke up from. A mysterious robotic voice begins to speak to you.
Hello, and again, welcome to the Aperture Science Computer Aided Enrichment Center. We hope your brief detention in the relaxation vault has been a pleasant one. Your specimen has been processed, and we are now ready to begin the test proper. Before we start, however, keep in mind that although fun and learning are the primary goals of all enrichment center activities, serious injuries may occur. For your own safety and the safety of others, please refrain from
Por favor,
donde fallan. Muchas gracias. And back. The portal will open in 3, 2, 1.
The name of the entity behind the voice is GLaDOS, a prominent character and villain introduced later in the game, which sets up a bit of a mystery behind what is actually going on in the grand scope of things. While you complete short-term objectives that you are told to do, an example of how good this game is at introducing stuff to you that you don't fully understand is when a portal opens on the wall, introducing the entire purpose of the game. GLaDOS seems like a helpful presence until you start seeing this toxic, almost playful side of it. It's quite obviously playing with your life, putting you through tests that don't benefit it in the slightest, except for almost some sick form of enjoyment. And let me remind you, this game was developed by a group of college kids that Valve acquired. These kids had such an amazing concept, and it's astounding how they ended up pulling it off. And Valve is not new to finding concepts from small groups of people and acquiring them. Nope. They have done this once before. And we'll be, talking about that game next that you may or may not heard of, which I'm sure you have heard of because it's the biggest game on Steam. Counter-Strike, yeah, they made Counter-Strike. Did you know that? I didn't think you know that. Well, transition, please. Okay, let's get through this. I'm more or less going to speedrun this because I'm sure you already know what Counter-Strike is, so I'm just going to explain it to you very quickly. Counter-Strike 1, Counter-Strike 2, Counter-Strike 3, and Counter-Strike Global Offensive are great multiplayer strategic shooter games. They're great, they're tactical shooter games, and they are very much addicting. Coming from someone who has like 500 hours in CSGO, which isn't that much compared to a lot of other people, but I do enjoy Counter-Strike Global Offensive. It's a good game. And all the other ones are great as well. Counter-Strike Source, I play that game almost every single day on freaking Ice World, dude. Ice World Deathmatch is one of the most fun thing I've ever had, deathmatch related. And by the way, this really revolutionized everything compared to like what they had at the time, like Doom Deathmatch or like Quake Deathmatch, which are fun in their own respects, but they lacked in depth. They weren't very in depth. They lacked depth. But Counter-Strike, well, they added depth, and it was originally a mod created by Mean Lee and Just Cliff. Hopefully I said those names right. But they are great games. They're tactical shooter games, and by the background gameplay, I'm sure you could already see what it looks like. And yeah, that's my Counter-Strike review, so this is going to finalize the video. I'm sorry for not uploading in like 6 days, actually. That's not that long, but you know. See ya, and let's go over some honorable mentions. So obviously there's a vast majority of games I actually didn't go over in this video, such as TF2, Dota 2, Ricochet, Alien Swarm, Left 4 Dead or something like that. But I felt like those games, while great games, all of them are great games and, you know, should deserve respect, I don't feel like they revolutionized anything as much as the games I've talked about today. Of course, TF2 has one of the biggest economies on Steam, one of the biggest games on Steam, one of the most fun games on Steam. But I'm talking about the games who revolutionized the genre, not just made it out as like really good games. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Those are our honorable mentions. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, subscribe, you know, if I'm worthy of it. But yeah, I don't know. Screw off, man.